year is 1967, and the technological miracle that you would want to have is a miniature television. This here is the Symphonic Minni TV, M-I-N-N-I, two N's in there. This here is a lunchbox-sized television that came out of Japan from the Symphonic Corporation, was marketed in the United States, and well, nowadays you can find them in abundance on eBay because, well, NTSC Signal's analog television is dead. It's just digital now, and these things are just paperweights. I bought this one here from a seller. Was untested, unknown as to whether it would work, but I was pretty certain it would work because it's in such nice shape, and if it didn't work, I'd be able to probably figure out what the problem is. Anyways, I got hooked up to a power supply. Ordinarily, it would take 9 1.5 volt batteries or a 12 volt car adapter. So I got about 12 volts here. And let's try this out. Where's the kaboom? Where's the earth-shattering kaboom? Anyways, I'm not getting any signal here at the moment because, well, I'm in the basement, and even if I was upstairs, there ain't any signals to be had. So I'm going to need to adapt some modern technology to work with this device. I have here, it's not quite the PU36 explosive space modulator, but this here's an RF modulator that takes DVI. Doesn't even need power. I got it here connected to my computer, and it's providing a little bit of power. Takes HDMI and converts it into NTSC signal. There's a little coax cable and a 1/8 phone adapter. Let's put this here into the external antenna jack. And lo and behold, check that out. It works. It works.
After 2,000 years of work, the Illudium Q36 explosive space modulator. At long last, my dream come true. Hello, Earth.
Finally, I can watch television, well, some television shows properly the way they meant to be watched. And here's the battery compartment. I've been looking at it, and I noticed that it's actually really quite a lot of space in there. I figure that I should be able to cram this RF modulator in some way, somehow. And there'd still be a fair amount of space in there. Maybe I can put a power supply and some other componentry, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, I believe that we can modernize this for our brave new world. I'm going to have to shelve this video for a little bit, however, as I go onto the intertube and I'll source some components. I'll be right back. And we're back. It's been a little bit more than a month. Time enough for the slow boats from China to come in and deliver supplies necessary for modernizing our little mini TV. Now, in addition to the PU36 Space D modulator, we have a Chromecast. This Chromecast is going to plug into there, and it's going to provide, well, a signal for the TV to use. As long as there's Wi-Fi, this TV will be able to operate independently, which is kind of cool. Now, to power up the TV as well as these devices, I got some little power supplies here. These are isolated power supplies. One is 12 volts, the other one's 5 volts. I'm not sure whether isolation was really necessary, but they are supposedly low noise, and the key criterion is that they were cheap. They were under $10 each, and they're small, they're really tiny. Now, to power these, we need 15 volts, and here is a USB-C power delivery cord. That'll give 15 volts out. It has the electronics inside, right inside the jack. They'll provide 15 volts out. Now, to make things nice and neat, here is a panel jack for USB-C. USB-C on one side, and on the other side, mount that on the TV and make things nice and neat looking. And then some other ancillary equipment that'll be needed. Here's a HDMI 180 degree, very tiny little space in there to cram everything inside. This will help along with that, as will a small USB micro plug here, a 90 degree short little cord. That'll be for the Chromecast. The first thing I did is defrock this RF modulator, take the casework off, and that way it can fit inside the mini TV battery compartment a little bit better. And in addition to that, I got rid of the RF accessory jack and the RF out jack. It has a symmetrical footprint, so I reversed the connector there. Chopped off the little switch for a channel selector. It still can be actuated with a screwdriver, and now it should be able to fit into the battery compartment no problem. Let's take this 180 degree HDMI connector and now the Chromecast and plug it in like so. Flip the Chromecast around like that, and it will fit into this battery compartment quite readily. Now I need to put this USB jack on the back of this battery compartment. I'm thinking about putting right there in that location. Looking through there, we can see that there's already a hole in the plastic. Not the right size, but it's almost there, and it's centered nicely, and I carefully checked it out, and I know the jack is going to fit in there. Now the problem is I need to get a hole perfectly centered in that little circle some way or the other, and you know what comes along to help? Junk. I go into my box of washers, and I found a washer here that fits in just absolutely tightly and perfectly. And then I have this box of miscellaneous hardware from RAF Electronic Hardware. I found this like well over a decade ago. I don't know if they're still in business, maybe they are. And you could write away to them and they'd send you a free box of junk. And I tell you, this box of junk has got me out of some binds occasionally. And I found in this box some little component here. I had to saw it in two. But this here perfectly fits into that hole in the washer. And it will fit either a transfer punch or a drill bit. Here's a little transfer punch. Let me see if I can do it for demonstration purposes here. And that will center it perfectly. Anyways, let me get drilling and I'll bring you right back. So here's the hole started, and I built it up a 1/64 of an inch at a time with a power drill, but it's getting a little bit risky, so I'm going to move to a hand reamer. A hand reamer is a fantastic option for thin metal like this and plastic. And I got one here and I got another one, and I'll be able to get the hole just to where I need it to be. As I'll bring you back when I get there. And there we go, a USB-C jack fairly nicely fitted onto this battery compartment. Now on to the power supplies. And the last joint on the power supply module. There we go. So here are the two power supplies, and these little power supplies, they don't have any holes for standoffs or any other way to mount it onto some sort of surface, so I had to improvise, and once again, junk comes to the rescue. You know, a golden rule is never throw anything out. Here's some plastic, just another little piece of it I got from the bottom of an old worn out duffel bag. Kept these around for a long time and occasionally use them. It's kind of a very tough and flexible, and in this situation it's really the ideal solution. Just to carefully drill it out with some holes, and it can hold the boards down with some zip ties. And also it provides a little bit of rigidity for these cables, for these delicate soldering connections. And here's how it fits together. It's all entirely inside the battery compartment. It's a little bit loose, but that could be relieved with just a piece of foam here, and that'll stabilize things in there quite nicely. It doesn't quite meet Foxconn quality control, but hey, that's what the suicide nets are for. And on the topic of suicide, if you ever break inside a CRT, you make sure that you know how to properly discharge it, because they can hold a lethal voltage. The little CRT tube, the tube itself, it acts like a capacitor that can hold well over 10,000 volts. For a big CRT, it might even be 50,000 volts. Small guy like this, 10,000, it's still pretty nasty. Anyways, I'm not going to show you how to do that here. I already did it. I don't want to be responsible for any cardiac arrests out there. Take care. Now let's take a moment to marvel at the state of miniaturization in the 1960s. This here is very different than technology nowadays. all hand soldering, multiple boards. My God, if you had to recap this thing or work on it in any significant manner, what a pain in the ass that would be. This front panel, that's cast aluminum. Pretty neat. Anyways, what we need to do next is we need to get RF into the RF jack, and we need to get DC power to the DC jack. To do that, we got this RG179 cable. I can purpose that. And from the 15-volt USB-C power supply, well, I got this coaxial jack here, and that should be able to be wired through and connect to our contraption that's going to be in the battery compartment fitting right there. Anyway, let me get on to it. And the mini TV is back together with cables routed for RF and for power. Inside the battery compartment, we have the PU36, hopefully not explosive, space modernizer. Hey, there's even space in there for an Arduino maybe someday. Anyways, I'm going to just slide this together. I'll do it off a camera, as getting these cables tucked in nicely is tedious. Be right back. And here's our modernized lunchbox-sized miniature television. Ain't that beautiful? It is so adorable. It runs on USB-C. It has Wi-Fi connection. And let's turn it on and give it a shot. Turn the volume up to about there. And we can finally watch ourselves some quality content.
The year is 1967.
Yeah. Anyways, hope you found that fun. Hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.